masa ma polakani habagi asa sumon the late adubu but it came about mak sumna tho haidana before the end of a year madugi thodok thogi ba chahi adugi loisalak ba sarukta mahaki nupina macha ma macha nupa ma pokpiram laga mahaki nupi du su sikhirami. An overwhelming resentment at first grew up in Raicharan's heart at the sight of this new baby. At the back of his mind was a resentful suspicion that it had come as a usurper in place of the little master. He also thought it would be a grave offense to be happy with a son of his own after what had happened to his master's little child. Indeed, if it had not been for a widowed sister who mothered the new baby, it would not have lived long. Somdana ngasagi mahaki nupina masa ama poklaga sikhra matungda masa pokpagi nungaibagi mahutta aduke matik sauningba nungaitaba ama phaurami Raicharangi mapuningdadi maramdi mahaki macha aduna laklibadu mapugi macha adu mahutta mapugi macha aduna sikhraga mahaki macha na olakpo oina mana khanjabana maram oiduna migi macha sikhraga macha polaga harauba habise madu aduke matik aranbu oigani hana mana khanjakibana tasengnamakki mahana anga adubo aduke matik polakpa mikupta mana miraibi khibuduna mahaki machal adumba mayum paluraga ngasagi lukhrabi ohoraba masaladuna anga dubu senabiramdrabadi anga do hinglam loidabani haidana Raicharan macha polakpa mikupta mana pendaba sauningba pongdokpagi chang adu paragraphsda akhoin uba phangli. But a change gradually came over Raicharan's mind. A wonderful thing happened. This new baby in turn began to crawl about and cross the doorway with mischief in its face. It also showed an amusing cleverness in making its escape to safety. Its voice, its sounds of laughter and tears, its gestures were those of the little master. On some days, when Raicharan listened to its crying, his heart suddenly began thumping wildly against his ribs, and it seemed to him that his former little master was crying somewhere in the unknown lane of death because he had lost his chana. Adubu Raicharan hek polakpa matamda macha polakpa matamda sauningba leramlabsu matamgi matungina tamtam mahaki wakhalda hongba lai angak pathodok tholai angang apikpa mahaki macha asengba dumaksu mahaki mapugi macha na tawkhibagum kakpai chatpa sal sarga chatpa mading asagi phage honabada chena na honaba nanthok na honaba adumba haitoi chingthoi madi mahakna kappa nokpa madi mahaki mong matau kaya punamak ado mahaki mapugi macha aduga chap manabadu mahakna tamna sum urame kariguma numit kharadadi ngasagi anga aduna kappagi khonjel tabada ngasagi mahaki mapugi macha aduna tamlaba adumba sibagi lamdamdagi yamna hauna kappaga mahaki mapu makpu senabiba Raicharan do thiba phangdabadagi tabagum adumna mahakna phaurame Raicharanna mahaki mapugi macha na kapakpagum adumaina phaubagi matang ama mahaki macha aduna tawriba mong mataw adudagi mana manaba khara macha adugi masagi Raicharangi macha aduna tawriba mong mataw sing adu mapugi macha aduna tawkhibaga manabagi matang amakak ulli. Finally, for it was the name Raicharan's sister gave to the new baby soon began to talk. It learned to say Baba and Mama with a baby accent. When Raicharan heard those familiar sounds, the mystery suddenly became clear. The little master could not cast off the spell of his chana, and therefore he had been reborn in his own house. Anga adugi maming adu Raicharan gi machal na thonbibagi matungina failna kaurame aduga hairiba anga simaksu ma marol lon ba kharga hiba horame angangi mongda ngasai baba mama haibra chingba ngang mahirami Raicharan na hairiba khonjel angang na nganglakpa wahi tarakpa mikupta mahaki chingnaramba mana angak phorma khudimak mayek sengna ma oirame madudi mahaki mapugi macha aduna mahaki memda amuk hanna mapo mapol arbani haidra. The arguments in favor of this were to Raicharan altogether beyond dispute. The new baby was born soon after his little master's death. His wife could never have accumulated such merit as to give birth to a son in middle age. Mahakna mahaki macha asengba mapugi machana mapo arbani haina mana khanjabai maramde mahaki mapugi macha adu hek sikhibaga kanadana mahaki macha nipa adu polakhibani aduga ani suba maram amana mahakna khali madudi mahaki nupina kaisu thoidog hendokpa afaba mahaki punsida tawkhiba leiba natabana adumba mahaki miyai chalaba sahi matang aduda angang pokpa khudong charurudabam sahi matang aduda angang polokpa habse masimak mapugi macha aduna mahut ngasagi mapo ma por bani hanamana khanjai ahumsu maramda the new baby walked with a toddle and called out Baba and Mama. There was no sign lacking which marked out the future judge. Adum bangang adugi haitoi sing thoi ma di mana chatpa hairpa ma di mana mi korpa hairpa adum kaya aduna asagi mahaksu hayeng tungda soidana maki judge oi hainingai leiti habi wakhala sina asagi maki mapugi macha aduna mapo ama halakpani hanaman khanjakhibani. Then suddenly Raicharan remembered that terrible accusation of the mother. Ah, he said to himself with amazement, the mother's heart was right. She knew I had stolen her child. When once he had come to this conclusion, he was filled with remorse for his past neglect. He now gave himself over body and soul to the new baby and became its devoted attendant. He began to bring it up as if it were the son of a rich man. He bought a go-cart, a yellow satin waistcoat, and a gold-embroidered cape. He melted down the ornaments of his dead wife and made gold bangles and anklets. He refused to let the little child play with anyone of the neighborhood and became himself its sole companion day and night. As the baby grew up to boyhood, he was so petted and spoiled and clad in such finery that the village children would call him Your Lordship and jeer at him, and all the people regarded Raicharan as unaccountably crazy about the child. Kanghaudana Raicharan nangasagi mahaki mapugi machana mapo mapolokpani haina mahaki machadu mana khanjarakpadu galoinana ngasai kanghaudana mana mama aduna maunda sikiba adumba yamna tamthiraba maraldo ma ningjangla ami madudi angang ase mahaki mapugi machadu mana hurankhibani haina mama aduna sigi maraldo madu tasengna makki mama gi mathumoido chumbajani ko haina mana khanjarame aduga loinana mahakna mamangi haukiba sarukta mana chekselogdabdagi mapugi macha sikhibadu mana nungaito hawi maramasina mahaki hek asengba machadu mahaki mapugi machaduna mapo halakpani haina khanjaraga mana aduki matik cheksinna mahaki thawai hakchang yauna chenajaduna anga yopa horami aduga loinana anga du inakera khunba macha amagum mana yopa horami madugi damakta mahakna mahaki nupina thambiramba mahaki nupigi leijaramba sana lupa loina makai thoga mahakna anga dugi mapi marol mapugi machada matamamda thon khibadumba punama ado mana tholaga anga du yopa horami aduga loinana mahaki machado khungang adugi akoibada leiriba anga macha amataga topaga sanalamde ma khaktanga dum numit chuppa ayuk nungthil maga pundunata leiraki anga aduna tamna som chaurpa matamda aduki mati anga do mana yam kethokna thambirakpana ngasagi atop khungangi angang kayana hek toina lagnarami angang aduda ngasagi ningthau macha ga haibna chingba adudagi loina dana adudagi loina na ngasagi khungang aduda leiriba ahal loiba kayana su Raicharan se mai macha da onthongna hena so kano oire yamna man henjele na mayamna lagnarami. At last, the time came for the boy to go to school. Raicharan sold his small piece of land and went to Calcutta. There he got employment with great difficulty as a servant and sent Falna to school. He spared no pains to give him the best education, the best clothes, the best food. Meanwhile, he lived himself on a mere full handful of rice and would say in secret, "Oh, my little master, my dear little master, you loved me so much that you came back to my house. You shall never suffer from any neglect of mine." Kaya thang dadi anga si tam sum charpo matung ini school chat pa yarpa chahi yorpa na ngasai Raicharan na mahaki khunna dudagi mai lam machela ma yon thoga ma na sora chauba Kolkata da laga anga si bulak tam hanna na honarame mafam duda ma na war suwana ma na mina magi sinpham da leiraga macha du school tam na bagi thab horame mahangna anga duna tamgadur school ma na set kadur ma pimaron chaga dur bachinja khudi ma khwai digi athoi ba hen ba afabang akta mana pirami aduga nakalamrom dana mahangna chumnagi chara nama khaktamuk charaga khangduna lelai aduga toina mana he haijai tuminna madudi my little master, my dear little master mahaki mapugi machadu mana sonjaduna kaujaduna na hakna aibo chukki matik nungsidana nang aigi yumda amuk hanna mapo mapokpirarbani ko hanakti nang ai cheksinabado nang halaroi nahak paina soidana maki aina yamna cheksinna senazarani hana mana he toina haijarame. 12 years passed away in this manner. The boy was able to read and write well. He was bright and healthy and good looking. He paid a great deal of attention to his personal appearance and was especially careful in parting his hair. He was inclined to extravagance and finery and spent money freely. He could never quite look on Raicharan as a father because though fatherly in affection, he had the manner of a servant. A further fault was this, that Raicharan kept secret from everyone that he himself was the father of the child. Asagi macha du mana mapi marol apapa ahen ba thoiba kaya thon na ngasai loina rakhibaduna chahi train thoi hokhirame anga do hojikti iba paba ngamla me songma tong ning thirami amadi masamo tik tik launa pharame yengbada phajaba oirami aduga loina na anga du su hujikti masagi phajaba masagi kebam nowba ma maunda yamna puning changjila ami masam hatpada masam khaibada adigi mamai mingchen toina yengba adumba anga dugi awon ba khara sum lami maram asina ngasai anga se ahen ba thoiba phajaba pot tabu pamba hore aduga pesa charging tawbudu ngasai atada kham leitana ngasai adum maning tamna tawbugi hainabi loina re aduga mahaki mapa asengba raicharan bu mana mapa magumna mana lawbusu ngamlak inde maramdi tasengna mapa magumna nuksibagi mong ulabasu mahaki mong matawdi minai magi mong mataw admaina loina rame aduga loina na raicharan na mayam dasu khangalamde madudi anga simak ki mapadi mahakni habasi. The students of the hostel where Phalna was a boarder were greatly amused by Raicharan's country manners, and I have to confess that behind his father's back Phalna joined in their fun. But in the bottom of their hearts, all the students loved the innocent and tender-hearted old man, and Phalna was very fond of him also. But as I have said before, he loved him with a kind of condescension. Saigi mahakna mi pungkudingda mahaki machani haina khangalam da maram moiduna hostel du leiba anga dugi marum pang kaya na su mahaki mapa magumna udabani na ngasai minai magumna ngasai makoina chu lagna dana adagi magi mong mato yamna bebar tawba adagi bebar sisinaraga anga duda wari sana ba kuding du da moina langnarami makoina langnarami haidana su moina yamna sut hoidana loina banati yamna moina nungsi dana angang sing aduna ahal adugi yamna mabu pau phaba ing tappa yamna bebar ubudu da angang sing dana sum moina nungai bagi sanaja boy kar boy tawjabani taseng namaki su mahaki macha du mangna su mangonda nuksiriba dudi ngasai mathak thongba mana makha thabam da nuksibibagi mong da nuksibani haidana writer sina palli. Raicharan grew older and older, and his employer was continually finding fault with him for his incompetent work. He had been starving himself for a boy's sake, so he had grown physically weak and no longer up to his work. He would forget things and his mind became dull and stupid. But his employer expected a full servant's work out of him and would not brook excuses. The money that Raicharan had brought with him from the sale of his land was exhausted. The boy was continually grumbling about his clothes and asking for more money. Raicharan from the sahi amjalakpai matungina mapangan chondarami mahana chara kaya henkibana mak mapugi mafam anoba mana minayana chinfam pairi baduda magna mathau ningthina toba ngamlakte maki ningsangbai sakti handharami amadi mak hainingba adigi tandharakpa adumba ka hainingba walakpa amadi tandharakpa adigi wakhal phakchilakpa adumba kaya aduna ngasai mapu dunadi somda maki thabak adu mapung phana pamlame adum oirakta mikuptu da mapuduna yamna saw na monda he ngangba hore aduga sagi Raicharan macha yokna na ba mahaki ingon yolaga pujarkhe paisa dudi exhausted ai loithora ame maram asina sa anga aduna somda su toina mahaki mafi marol amadi magi ahen machading tawnuna bagi paisa tatana ni ba horame. Raicharan made up his mind. He gave up the situation where he was working as a servant and left some money with Phalna and said, I have some business to do at home in my village and shall be back soon. Raicharan na chap yung na lepa may madudi mahak minawebe sinpamadi tokthok mahak choidana kaygumba mukhak tawruge haidana anga pisa khara sinarmaga ai yam thuna lakani hairaga ma chatkirame. He went off at once to Barasit where Anukul was magistrate. Anukul's wife was still broken down with grief. She had no other child. Raicharan na lakli mafam madudi mahaki matamamagi mapu Anukul na judge where mafam madudi lakoi ramle Haidiba matang adudi Anukul adi Raicharan gi mapu dugi nupi adu angang amata yaramdri aduna madi ningba kai adum leramle. One day Anukul was resting after a long and weary day in court. His wife was buying at an exorbitant price a herb from a mendicant quack which was said to ensure the birth of a child. A voice of greeting was heard in the courtyard. Anukul went out to see who was there. It was Raicharan. Anukul's heart was softened when he saw his old servant. He asked him many questions and offered to take him back into service. Nongma Anukul na Raicharan gi mapu na mahaki office tagi halaga nungai na mana war ba adigi thawak kaya suru bugi pothadna leiringai da sagi Raicharan na mahaki sumang dagi kaurokpugi khonjel adu tarame madu mana tholga yengum mikupta Raicharan oirambadu da ma aduki matik haraurame mana wahang kaya hangjarami aduga Raicharan bu mahaki mafamda amuk minai na thawak suraga leirana bagi mana su adu kudongcha phawba mana hawdolami somdadi mahaki nupina angang amakaktang oirbasu yaurabadi haidana mafam marang khangdagei mana kochen chendana koingau ngauduna hidak langthak thiramli Tana be aba doctor ahi bedagina tambal oidangai bedagina punamakta ma adum honarami. Raicharan smiled faintly and said in reply, I want to make obeisance to my mistress. Raicharan na ngasagi mahaki mapu matamagi anukulna uba mikupta thengnaba mikupta mahapu yamna harau ta yamna okpi budu mana nokphet tor man haijarami madudi ai madam dasu amtang ai bebar uchage haidana mapugi nupi du kokthorna man haijarami. Anukul went with Raicharan into the house. Anukul na mahapu yumanu da pusin birami, where the mistress did not receive him as warmly as his old master. Adubu mahaki mapugi nupi aduna di mahapu mapu aduna okpi kiba harau ta yamna okpi budu adugumna di okpira amde. Raicharan took no notice of this but folded his hands and said, it was not the Padma that stole your baby, it was I. Adubu Raicharan na ngasagi mahaki mapugi nupi aduna intinuay na okpi da bududa ma usinaramde aduga mahana makut lonaraga haijarami madudi nahaki nasa laukibado turel Padmana natte aina ni ana haira ame. Anukul exclaimed, Anukul na khanglaw laurami, great God, what, where is he? Karino haisibu nang na haisibu, karay dilay gay sa adubo haidana mana laurami. Raicharan replied, he is with me, I will bring him the day after tomorrow. Mahak ado, nokwagi nasa ado ay galaminari, ay mahak soydana maki, hayengi matang hangchit, urake haina hairame. It was Sunday, there was no magistrate's court sitting. Judge board husband and wife were looking expectantly along the road, waiting from early morning for Raicharan's appearance. Raicharan, Ubra, Raicharan, Lakpura, Haimana Chingba, Matemana, Duna, Lambita, Ying, Lejerame. At 10 o'clock, Puntarata, Pomikupta, he came leading Palna by the hand, Masani Palna, the Mukut Samaga, Puntarada, Yorame. Anukul's wife, without a question, took the boy into her lap and was wild with excitement, sometimes laughing, sometimes weeping, touching him, kissing his hair and his forehead, and gazing into his face with hungry, eager eyes. The boy was very good looking and dressed like a gentleman's son. The heart of Anukul brimmed over with a sudden rush of affection. Anukul gi Raicharan gi mapugi nupi aduna ngasai wahang amata tawdana nga adubu matambakta pusinjadana man matambakta pamdana nga adu man chup-chup-bane adagi makukta nan-bane munnabu yeng-bane adukki matig harao nok-bane kapu-kap-bane nga adu man admaina loina rame anga adu adukki matig chuning tijarame amadi mapimrolo dusu inakara khunba adumba miwe magi macha amagumna selpira ame adugi anga adugi mataw amadi mahaki nupigi mataw ubada Anukul su mahaki mathamoy adu harao bana Nevertheless, the magistrate in him asked, have you any proofs? To him sung, Mahak the judge nina, judge ki wa mai wakalon lay nina, nahang na ay isa ni han por ibse sige kari praman lay hain hangla me. Raicharan said, how could there be any proof of such a deed? God alone knows that I stole your boy and no one else in the world. Madugi praman mataw karam na laygane, chu moy praman kaday de laygane, isor mahak na khangane madudi nahaki na sado ay hak na huran bane. When Anukul saw how eagerly his wife was clinging to the boy, he realized the futility of asking for proofs. It would be wiser to believe, and then where could an old man like Raicharan get such a boy from? And why should his faithful servant deceive him for nothing? Anukul na mahaki nupina nga adu buda matik thawai tanan nuksina loina jabudu buda man praman hangmuboi kasu thidok pakana balai roi habsi ma bhab oirame aduga loina na mahakna Madu Thazabadan Hena Singbo Ganyana Kanjar Ame. Aduki Matakta, Hallo, Raicharan, Gumamana Anga, Mabukadai, the gay Habsimana Kalame, Aduga Matama the Mahapu, Yam, Luna, Tograki Minaya, Dunakaido, Bugisu, Mahapunam Takto, Duribano, Hainamana, Kalame. But Adubu, he added severely, Raicharan, you must not stir, Raicharan Hakti Mapam is the Makatan Lebiara Roy, Hairame. Where shall I go, master? Said Raicharan in a choking voice, folding his hands. I am old who will take in an old man as a servant. Ay kaday da chakado no, master, ay di ahal su oire, ay gumlawa ahan oire, wama bukanan minaw na mong lokshin bigadage, haidna makol nik na nga say makutlon na raga haijara ame. The mistress said, let him stay, my child will be pleased, I forgive him. Mapu dugin na piya dun di, mahakpu laijara suno, mahaksu laijara suno, ay isa sina su haraw jani. Ay gawin na di, mahakpu, Raicharan bu ay na, Nakpikrapani had na mapugi na Pedro di Pongdor Lame. But Adubu Anukul's magistral conscience would not allow him, Adubu judge to Ebenina Magi Adumba, while Bichar Haiba Adumba, Achumarangi, Paring Kangba Mahagna Day, Ayaba Piram Day. No, he said, Madu Tokte, he cannot be forgiven for what he has done. Mana Tokribadugi, the Muktamahapung, Pipam Tokte, Haidana Haira May. Raicharan bowed to the ground and clasped Anukul's feet. Master, he cried, let me stay. It was not I who did it was God. Raicharan laimai the uprangshin hiptuna mapudi kongkon dun haijarami madudi ahak pongtadi lehen biu aina tokchibanate punmado isurmagi thoin chinni haijarami. Anukul's conscience was worse stricken than ever when Raicharan tried to put the blame on God's soldiers. Anukul's thing asagi adukumatik hena sorami madudi mahaki maral dubu isorgi sorda thangjinena honarakpaduda. No, he said, I cannot allow it. I cannot trust you anymore. You have done an act of treachery. Aina nahakpu makhatana thajaba ngamlaroi madu ai ayaw piba ngamloi nangna tawriba thong ase adumba namthak achoba namtha amani haidana Raicharan gi mapuduna kumlami. Raicharan rose to his feet and said, it was not I who did it. Raicharan lekhatuna haijarami madudi ai hangna natte tawripuduma to haidana. Who was it then? Asked Anukul. Maki mapu Anukul hanglami adudi kanana no. Raicharan replied, Raicharan kumlam, it was my fate. Punma ado ehaki iraibagni haidana. But no educated man could take this for an excuse. Anukul remained obdurate. Adu bulagla su hairba kayana de. Adumba ishor natraga iraibagni haidana man maram pir beduda kanana su mawa lobiram loy lobiram dre. Anukul remained obdurate. Anukul do hainaba yaram dre. When Phalna saw that he was a wealthy magistrate's son and not Raicharan's, he was angry at first, thinking that he had been cheated all this time of his birthright. But seeing Raicharan in distress, he generously said to his father, Father, forgive him even if you don't let him live with us. Let him have a small monthly pension. Phalna Raicharan gi taseng na pukso machaduna mahak na mahak ase adumba mahaki mapa Raicharan gi macha natre ina kara kullaba adumba jajam gi machani khanglak pa mikup tu dadi mahak chu sauning ba phawrami han han ba mikup da maramdi mahak pu aduk sang na mahaki phangum thok ba hak mirai biraga nathai biraga thambirami haina mana sagi Raicharan da sauning ba phawrami adubu Raicharan gi adumba pai lei jadraba mong mato adu uba mikup da magna yamna mabuchel chawna mapa haijarami madudi baba mahakpu ngakbikrasi babana mahakpu akhoiga lemina hallaroi haibasu mabu tha kudingi di paisa kharaga BBC haidar macha aduna hairak ami. After hearing this, Raicharan did not utter another word. Masagi wahai du tara matungdagi di Raicharan makhata na wahai amta pongdok khiramdre. He looked for the last time on the face of his son. Masagi maithong aduda amuktang aroi boina mahak yangjarami. He made obeisance to his old master and mistress. Mapu amadi mapu ginupiani the man bebhar ucharami. Then he went out and was mingled with the numberless people of the world. Adudagidi mag yumadi thokirami aduga adumba masing thingamdraba samsara sigi mirakta magse tinkhirami haibadi asagi mahak mangre mahak karai da chakrage karai da laikhrage habise kana su khangidre. At the end of the month, Anukul sent him some money to his village. Tha loirakpadang asagi machana haijabugum asagi Raicharan gi mapu Anukul aduna Raicharan gi khungang adu paisa kharadi thabirami. But adubu the money came back. Paisa adudi halami. There was no one there of the name of Raicharan ko kana su mafam aduda leiramdre haidana. Aduna parase matang asida losile.
Hauzik tabikre Diamond Radio na puthok sabat thorom mahikol thorom asigi manung chana Board of Secondary Education Manipur Bosem gi class 10 gi English subject asigi literature saruktagi ahum suba chapter The Child Written chapter asibu takpi tambibagi thorom takpi tambikhiba Oza Yaifaba Senglei Head of Department English BYS Coaching Center Palace Compound Imphal thorom asi Diamond Radio amadi Build Your Success BYS Coaching Center Palace Compound Imphal-ga Kusamnaraga Sandok Sabat Thoramni. Makal Mathel gi Thoram kaya Sandok tuna tahanjariba asi 91.2 MHz ta Sandok Saba Diamond Radio Channel gi Anisuba Thoram Padingni.